When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind Raw with John Pollock. Waiting. It is Monday night, April the 22nd, as we have Raw to discuss from Columbus, Ohio, a new women's champion, Becky Lynch.
What a big occasion.
Seventh title reign, as per Michael Cole. Huge.
I didn't know we were counting. I mean, I guess I don't know what I was expecting, but yeah, 7 sounds kind of right, actually, for her.
Sure. If I had told you this was her second title reign, would you have believed me?
Maybe not.
Okay, maybe that's too low.
4th, I would have bought it, but
How
7th,
high could I have gone? Could I have gone 10? Would you have
You
bought
could
10?
have. Yeah, that doesn't sound crazy.
That's not wild at all in this day and age. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in live for Rewind to Raw. We have news to get into. We will chat about Raw. A big week coming up, as always, here on the Post Wrestling feed. If you want to get caught up on everything from the weekend, your one-stop shop is Post Wrestling. We have shows up there between the cafe and the regular feed from TNA Rebellion. We have a Collision Rampage review from John Cena and Kate from Montreal. Big dissection of Dynasty with myself and Wai Ting late Sunday night into the early morning hours of Monday. Always a late one when it comes to an AEW pay-per-view, but we are used to them by this point.
But a good one.
It was a pretty good show, yes.
Yeah.
As of now, Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson has a 9.72 rating on Cage Match, making it the 10th highest rated match on Cage Match in history and the highest outside of Japan ever.
All right, okay.
We will see if it stays at this level, but consensus seems to be that people enjoyed this match and this show.
I would say so, yeah. Have you had a chance to rewatch the match?
No, I don't have time to rewatch anything, but I can remember it very, very clearly, though, 24 hours removed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I did this afternoon. And
okay.
Yeah.
Any
crazy?
reflections you had on second viewing?
I enjoyed it more even the second time because
even with the spoiler, you knew who was going to win.
I enjoyed it on a different level. Like the second time you watch it, you know what's coming, but so therefore you know when to start paying attention for their setups, and you can almost watch it on a completely different level. You can study it on a different level. So, just really two masters at their very best.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous match. It's the one everyone was talking about coming out. It truly, like, one of the greatest matches you're going to see, and I think it has set the bar to a ridiculous level for this year. I mean, this to me was an all-time match that you're discussing among the best that these two have ever had in their careers, which is a statement in and of itself. But after Dynasty, we had the typical press conference where a number of the talents came out. I got to see most of them. I saw the Tony Khan one. I saw Swerve's. I did not see Tony Storm, and I did not see Willow Nightingale. Did you catch any of those two that I missed? Anything notable?
So Tony Storm, as is expected, was entirely shtick. She came out with a pre-written statement, and I thought it was fucking hilarious. Like, I know how you feel about like dudes doing gimmicks and people doing gimmicks. I guess for me, when it's done well, I make an exception, and I thought it was really funny. There are a lot of things I probably couldn't get away with repeating in a recap, but it was like she's very, very good at the character and pretty much didn't take any questions. But as an exercise and just like somebody performing, I thought she did really well. Willow was a lot more, I think, I don't know, heartfelt, and talking, like, I would say a bit more of a standard sort of like appearance, but I thought Swerve was really good. I thought Ospreay was really good as well.
Yeah, Ospreay was also there. I saw that one as well. Yeah, with him it was tough because he had to sell this finish at the beginning and be really, like, he did not want to just, okay, now we're talking now as though the show is over and I'm speaking as the individual about my performance. I think he wanted to link the severity of this injury that they are going to play up on television, and he is retiring the Storm Driver. I just felt it was a tough balancing act at the beginning that he's trying to do this, and just I don't really want to be here, and my mind is elsewhere. But I'll take some questions, and then he got into like the rhythm of just talking about the match itself and what Danielson meant to him as someone growing up, including this story about going to one of the like all-star, like it sounded like one of like the Butlin's shows and watching Bryan Danielson perform there.
Yeah. I again, like the idea of a press conference in professional wrestling continues to, I think, evolve and be treated differently depending on the performer, depending on the promotion, depending on the evening even. So you continue to see a real cross between a continuation of a performance and maybe sincere, discussion to even news breaking. And at this point, like, I think you have to expect anything, including several of those things within the same appearance. And Ospreay decided to use the first portion to continue to sell the story. Second portion to be a bit more sincere. Although you maybe have to wonder if all of it is a performance. Like
I mean, it all is to a degree. Like, yeah, for sure.
Even the people that are always sincere. I mean, on any level, any appearance in front of a camera or in front of a microphone could be some form of performance. Anyway, that's just the way professional wrestling is, isn't it?
Tony Khan.
Ospreay also did talk about the Triple H.
That's
line.
right. It was brought up, and his head just goes down and doesn't want to talk about this. It's like, well, you throw this out, you are going to be asked about it. I think totally fair question to ask someone about. But he basically just stated, I'm no longer talking about them. I feel I lowered myself to respond. I don't regret what I said. I think I was justified in what I said, and that was that. I mean, I don't think anyone would take issue with that kind of stance, but obviously, I think he probably sensed the negative side that comes with this as well, when you're going to fire these shots and they're going to go back and forth, and these shots will continue between performers and these companies at different times. But that's
to let out a huge, like, almost like groan even at the mention of it, just because of all the, I'm sure, negativity that even just the topic has brought up. And almost like, well,
you have to accept that when you're going on national television and you're going to state that, then you can't just be, oh, I can't believe someone's going to bring this up. I mean, that's a totally fair question to ask.
Totally. I believe he said that he doesn't regret saying it, but I think is probably just has had enough exposure of the discourse, as we all have. And I believe, like, he said something to the effect of, like, he hasn't experienced tribalism to that degree, following him mentioning that line. But it's like, sometimes it's beneficial for a professional wrestling company. Sometimes it's not beneficial, and it's up to everybody to gauge when it's too much. And I guess for Ospreay, it was a little too much.
Any thoughts on Swerve and his segment?
So good. Swerve was so good. So now, like, a big deal was made after the fact of the Swerve being the first black champion or world champion in AEW. Now it was not like anything that was stated sort of beforehand in the lead up to the story. Like, really, it was not a part of the story, but this is like almost like real life, it's a bigger portion. I found it in like the entire press conference appearance from Swerve was kind of talking about that, like the significance of being the first black champion and how difficult even getting here is, despite the incredible, I think, momentum he was enjoying. I found it incredibly, like, insightful to hear about his mindset, talking about how even when he was, like, arguably on fire as a character, how uncertain he was that he was going to get to this point. And mentioning how it's happened before in the past where, like, somebody, could be like a huge act, but if you miss the timing for whatever reason, it's gone, and it's gone forever. And, you have to just imagine the elation that he felt at this point. Even, you never know what's guaranteed in this business, even when everything looks like it's headed towards one direction. Look at Cody last year, right?
It's one of those insights whenever you will hear, like, fans talk about, like, missing the timing on somebody, and the defense is, let the story play out. I mean, these performers are the last proponents of let the story play out. I think they understand when they are riding a hot hand and when to strike when the iron is hot, and sometimes they're off. And I mean, the Cody decision, I mean, it proved to be a very beneficial one, and that worked.
But that was a huge gamble.
Of course it was a gamble. Of course it was a
And
gamble.
at one point, that even wasn't going to happen when Dwayne Johnson entered the picture. So, I mean, you never know. But, I mean, Swerve was, I think, more specifically talking about not just for professional wrestlers, but for black professional wrestlers, you know, where this shit can just be taken away and it's really never guaranteed.
And kind of pushing for your moments and your spots and taking advantage of those. I mean, that's a whole aspect of this industry that he kind of got into as well. And I just thought this to be a really fascinating, like this to me was the most substantial portion of the press conference, was Swerve, even down to his attitude about the free agents coming in, of how it's pushed everybody when you've got these world-class talents coming in, and he's trying to approach this in a different way of maybe this generation can look at it less of this guy's coming for my spot, I'm going for his spot, and this cutthroat nature, as opposed to like, I need people to work with, I need people to draw money with, and if we can get that right mix, I'm paraphrasing here, but kind of the sentiment he was stating was the idea of, if we can get this package together, this package is like one of the greatest rosters ever assembled, and if we play our cards right, like, we could have years of programs at our disposal if we're all working in concert with one another. And while maybe I'm reading too deep into it, we're coming off a period that he lived through of where you had these contentious factors in the locker room, where you had all this talent, and yet it was self-destructive in some ways and has caused great harm to this company in the last 2 years.
Certainly, yeah. I thought he was just like, it was just wonderful to kind of hear him kind of like, you know, showing the audience, despite like what we think of professional wrestling as everything being predetermined and you already know you're getting the spot, how much of a struggle it still is once you feel like you're cast in the role to finally be in this position. So I hope to hear a lot more of this sort of Swerve come out in the character. The character still is a bit of a different character right now, you know, but I really enjoyed hearing this like real, to me, fully, completely relatable babyface version of Swerve in this press conference.
This is the kind of guy that can be your face, that can go out there and represent your company, and I think can open you to a lot of different avenues just with his music background and the amount. This is a guy that has, you know, a very, I think, very dialed in focus on his career, getting his messaging out there, and very smart about his branding. I mean, this guy's like promoting his shoes in the middle of this, and giving Tony Khan some comp shoes right here at the press conference, no less. Tony Khan, at the end, he was asked again about the footage and thought it did add to the return of Jack Perry, and that the footage helped explain where Jack Perry has been all this time. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, if your viewer didn't know the whole story anyway, and they're just watching that footage, their conclusion would be, this guy was sent away for that? Like, he's the one who was approached here. He was the one who was essentially reacting to the guy that initiated contact. This was the guy that you banished away to New Japan because of this footage. Like, you almost have to go into more of the story. There was nothing about the glass line that was explained. There was nothing about any of the other circumstances explained on TV. Beyond that security footage. So I would push back there in terms of that, giving everyone an update on, oh, where's Jack Perry been? Oh, right. He was nearly put into a choke by this man.
I guess to me, anything other than, to me, like the idea of airing this in order to retaliate against CM Punk's, you know, MMA Hour interview feels like it's just a way for him to kind of, you know, give us like a bullshit justification that, I don't know, might sound good. I don't know how much the audience buys it all, but I'm sure like he can. I'm sure on some level, like this Jack Perry return, he's the biggest benefactor of everything that's gone on. we've talked about this enough to death, about whether or not
Let's do another 30 minutes.
It's an equal trade in value. I don't think it is, and I will always not think it is. But I mean, I don't think you'll get any different answer from Tony Khan.
Do you think that if Jack Perry blows up after this and becomes their biggest star, do you think Tony Khan has a Dana White inspired hard drive of all the media members that have doubted this decision, and he's going to put out a hit video on the wrestling media?
I hope not. I hope Tony Khan doesn't devolve to Dana White levels of pettiness. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. Depends.
He would have to resort to also out of context lines from the media, but we will see if Tony Khan goes that direction one day. Mentioned when he was asked about Mercedes Moné being cleared, he said she will be cleared at Double or Nothing. So it's always nice when you can know when someone is going to be cleared. But it has to be pretty close to. They're confident enough in promoting the match, and we're over a month away.
It was newsworthy in that he admitted that she presumably is not cleared right now. So she did do physicality that one time, but not cleared enough for a match, I guess.
He was asked about the idea of ever taking all their programming to streaming, which I would see a very small chance of that ever happening. But he did say it's something to consider, and did in fact disclose the fact they are still in the exclusive negotiating window with Warner Brothers Discovery. But he was pretty open about the fact that at minimum, they will have a streaming outlet for their library next year. So obviously that's a big initiative to push. Citing the hours of content, not just of the AEW library, but ROH, and even mentioning the New Japan library, which is kind of an interesting wrinkle of whether they have the rights to just content involving AEW talent with New Japan in Japan, or if this is larger and they have like licensing rights to New Japan's content. All of this sounds like interesting to a wrestling fan. I don't know if this is really going to move the needle with any streamers out there in terms of like all these hours of wrestling content that they would be interested in.
I don't know. I don't know how much to even look into like what he said beyond, we're working on a streaming deal. These Tony answers, it's just like he takes one thing and then he'll just kind of like ramble for a long time about like various,
There was one guy
entities
who I thought had the bbest setup. This is how you ask Tony Khan a question. Hey, Tony, are you from Peoria, Illinois? No, I'm actually from Champaign, Illinois. So I guess it was a bit of a homecoming last night. Yeah, it was. When's MJF coming back? And he just caught him like out of nowhere. It's like it's so funny to watch some of these questions. But I laughed at this guy's setup. He just boom went right to it after buttering him up. That was about it from the Tony Khan side. I mean, nothing too earth shattering. A few of the questions about the he's going to continue to get questions about the television negotiations, and I think what is he really going to divulge? But we at least got something here of like what they're looking at in terms of the streaming component, and the expectation that as we get closer to this unannounced date of this exclusive negotiating window ending, like the longer that goes, the longer you assume that Tony is going to test free agency once they are able to have talks outside of WWE.
Not to, don't you think? With the giant gap that's been left with like WWE Raw moving to Netflix, I mean, he'd be silly not to.
And you're also going to be negotiating at a time when like WWE's kind of running out the clock too, in that as AEW's having all these negotiations, like, are you just negotiating for the best deal possible and whatever night of the week? Or are you in the back of your mind, like, what night of the week are all these shows going to be on? You can't guarantee what night Raw, SmackDown, or NXT will be a year from now. They could all be on the same nights. They could all be on different nights. You don't know what the wrestling schedule is going to look like, but I have a pretty good feeling between AEW and WWE, we're going to see some changes of nights. And
how many nights are, I agree with you. We're also running out of days.
Let me just put it this way. When the schedule's announced, Wai and I will be having a long sit down and discussing how we want to spend the next like decade of our lives.
I'm sure they are trying to convene together and trying to decide how we can shift the Earth's rotation so we can add an extra day so we can fit another couple days of content in there.
On to so we spoke on Friday night about the WWE cuts that had come out since then, and then we have learned of more. After the show ended on Friday, we learned of Indus Sher also being part of the cuts with Veer and Sangha. Veer, Rinku Singh, was he's 35 years old, and of course he was the subject of Disney's $1 million arm, and had been in the company since 2018. Sangha, he's 39 years old, and he actually did some matches for Jeff Jarrett's Ring Ka King back in 2012, and then didn't wrestle again until WWE signed him in 2018. So these, with Veer and Sangha, and Von Wagner, by the way, who Fightful added to the list, these are all like NXT recruits who had their first matches in NXT. And yeah, so Von Wagner, Cal Bloom, he was also part of the cuts. And yeah, I mean, you can certainly look at the fact like these were a number of stars that were geared for international markets, and they're also ones that had been in the system for quite some time. Like Von Wagner was signed back in 2019, and I think he had turned a corner just from a personality standpoint with the Robert Stone stuff. Was he, like, after 5 years, if you're looking at him, were there improvements? Yes. Was this guy someone that was jumping out at you as someone as like this can't miss hit on the main roster? I wouldn't say he crossed that threshold. So I think that's probably some of the thinking here. And with Indus Sher, I mean, it was probably a lot of the same thinking of guys that, you know, they just had seen in their system and just figured let's create some vacancies.
Yeah, I would say with all of these releases, I don't know if I've seen the type of sort of like public maybe outrage or even yeah, I don't know. Like, these are understandable releases, especially when you kind of understand how long they've been a part of the system, how often, like how little they've been used in recent years, and especially when you understand how many people they have waiting for these spots. You're doing these people a disservice by keeping them, especially, I don't know what sort of contracts they're on, but like if a Von Wagner was still on any sort of like NXT deal for all that time, I mean, let the guy go so he can, you know, like find another job. Or
he's under 30. Like, he could be that guy that go, and we'll find out. Like, if he goes out there and he attacks the indies, and like I'm certain, like for some of these, it's like send them out there and see what they become. And you know, you have your Drew McIntyres as sort of like the big, you know, best case scenario. But even like someone like a Big Cass is who I compare to, in that, you know, when he was cut, I don't think this guy's phone was like ringing off the hook. And man, talk about a guy that turned his life around. But then like he's become like a quality big man, and you know, went through that route, went through TNA, got to AEW, and you know, Von Wagner's a guy that, I mean, the jury is always out when you're talking about these people that they've only been in the WWE system, and we will see like some of these people you'll never hear from again. NXT, they have now confirmed that they will be running their Battleground show June the 9th at the UFC Apex, where limited NXT Battleground priority passes will soon be available through exclusive partner On Location. And man, on tonight's show, they were showing like the B-roll of the Apex. It was like, this is, I don't know how many tickets they can sell to this thing, but I imagine it's going to be a premium ticket. But is this, I don't know. It's obviously, this is an experiment for the TKO Synergies way. But yeah, I am sure they will make this look appealing on television. But if there is one consistency, it is like MMA fans are just, they hate the atmosphere of these Apex shows. But I mean, that's largely like friends and family. Like, it is not these are not designed as ticket selling events for the UFC. It is a company owned venue that allows us to keep costs down. We don't have to load up cards because we don't have to worry about selling tickets, and we're fulfilling the number of dates for our ESPN contract. And that was a benefit of the pandemic, was running these, and the fact that we are this many years removed and are still doing, like, I think a third of their shows every year in this Apex.
Right. Well, just for the cost savings alone, if they're making any sort of money by selling the programming, why wouldn't they continue? You know, you're going to pay us for shooting stuff that we, you know, from a building that we don't have to pay rent for. Yeah, sure. But just looking at the size of this, approximating it with this octagon in the background, like this does not look all that different from what I imagine the Performance Center to look like.
It's going to be similar. Like, remember, you got to fit in like a set and an entrances, which are not like a big, like here in the UFC, like they just walk from the back right into the octagon.
Is this where they shoot the Ultimate Fighter?
This is where they do like the Contender Series and and they do the Ultimate Fighter here too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a little surprised that they like made such a big deal out of this, like as a feature almost in their sort of advertising, because it's not a thing you can really sell too many tickets to.
No, it's.
But I don't know. Maybe there's.
It's not like you even have like these hardcores in Vegas. Like you have your hardcores in Orlando that comes to these shows every week for NXT.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's an experiment. It's not like they're losing their lunch on this. It's like it's not like really anything risky. It's just it'll be interesting to see. This one will be on the production end and how well it comes off, and that's.
At the very least, I hope they make it look different from the Continental Wrestling Coliseum. Is that what they call it?
The Capital Wrestling.
Yeah, whatever that thing. Capital Wrestling Center.
I think so. I don't think they even call it that anymore. They haven't called it
whatever. Anymore. Like I hope they at least make it different, and it's not just another Performance Center show. Like I hope there's something meaningfully unique about the way it looks.
TNA Rebellion had several returns. Mike Santana coming back to the company. Sami Callihan, after he left last September, he is back. And Broken Matt Hardy was the big surprise at the end of the night in the Broken character. And Matt Hardy has since stated that he has not signed a contract, so he is not under any like deal with TNA. But the clear direction you came out of this, based on like the image here, was going for Moose and the championship. Mainly Matt Hardy. Wai, what did you think about this option for Matt Hardy at this stage of his career and coming full circle after a big fallout, the public one that he had with Anthem back in 2017?
I like it a lot. I mean, if our biggest options are, for a wrestler currently are WWE, which he's kind of gone through already, and when they're cutting people like a Von Wagner, I don't see them making room for a Matt Hardy, who really has not been all that impressive during this AEW run. So I wouldn't have felt that, even though like he was definitely playing up like that he could be part of this whole Wyatt family thing. Those spots should be given to, I think, more upcoming talent. And I of all the options, I thought TNA Impact was the best one for him. It's the place where you can argue he had his last greatest success in the creation of this character. I think he's suddenly a big fish in a smaller pond where he can feel like a top star at least as this character. There's obviously the whole history and just the unique feeling of seeing this as part of an Anthem affiliated company again. And I think like
Matt Hardy versus Ed Nordholm, Bound for Glory.
Maybe they could do it now. Sure, yeah. But this is a place where they can direct a lot of their resources to fulfilling whatever vision he might still have for, whether it be cinematic matches or like Hardy Family Compound types of matches. And he's going to feel much more special. I think it's a good fit.
You were telling me over the weekend you kind of have a renewed interest now in going back to some of these cinematic matches. I kind of feel the opposite. I'm still like exhausted from them in the pandemic era, but like when you're thinking about the strongest run of this broken scene, this broken universe, we're going back to 2016 when they did that final deletion and the follow-ups. That was 8 years ago. It's not as though the WWE stuff was held in like great esteem by the same fans of the TNA material. So it's been long enough. And I think this could also be a segue into like a different character, some other new ideas. And you're right in that TNA certainly has the people in the production side that I think you're going to want to lean into this stuff, that it makes a lot of sense, I would say, for Matt Hardy in that, I did not see this guy uprooting himself to go become a coach in Florida. I don't see him, being a main roster guy in WWE. The most surprising thing is Matt Hardy, of all people, going to a company and not being bound by a contract. I mean, clearly the man has some scar tissue from this AEW run when it comes to contracts.
Yeah. I think we can. So I don't know how much mileage you really could have gotten out of Matt Hardy, and a lot of things were out of his control. Like, you know, whatever plans they had for a Hardy Boys reunion, obviously were affected there too. But what they did decide to do with him, with the never-ending contract saga with Ethan Page and Isaiah Cassidy, was just unbearable sometimes. So I don't know if I'm sure like he'll do an interview at some point, maybe talking about some of his frustrations, but he's probably on the lookout for some form of redemption for his own character as well.
Conor McGregor, I've not seen too much attention on this, but he is going to be in court this week over an alleged incident in 2018. This involves assault and personal injury involving a mother and a daughter, and they're both cases are being heard this week in Dublin High Court, and they've been split into two. This was investigated by Gardaí in Ireland, and because of this being Ireland, where they are very protective of details about ongoing cases, like none of the details, even of what is alleged, was released. But when this was investigated, the director of public prosecutions did not proceed with charges. McGregor has denied the claims, and we will see if we get any more insight into it this week. But I think it's pretty notable because so much of the discussion on Conor McGregor is he's fighting on June 29th, and that's the large focus of things. And it's that's going to take up a lot of the Conor McGregor oxygen for people, but something to keep note of this week. But the major news is that coming up later this week, it is the KOPW championship match between the Great O'Khan and Yuya Uemura. The fans have spoken, Way. They want the rural revitalization match, and that is going to be contested over 3 rounds for the KOPW title later on this week. Round number 1. It is a Mazda tire carrying contest where the participants must carry 4 Mazda tires. This is brand specific of the tires they must carry from the stage area to the ring. The fastest wins the round. Then we go to round number 2, a Hiroshima lemon eating contest. Whoever can eat an entire Hiroshima lemon the fastest wins. I've never eaten a lemon raw. Sounds disgusting. And I imagine Hiroshima has some specialty lemons with them. If we are tied, then we will go to round 3 and have a table match.
Okay.
Now, last time they had promoted eel, and it turned out they did not eat eel, as you had tuned in to expect, Way.
Yeah.
And we will see if they deliver on Hiroshima lemons for this championship match.
Well, no offense to the lemon farmers of Hiroshima, but they hardly sounds as appealing as, seeing wrestlers eat eel before having a wrestling match. Okay, so I don't know.
Have these run its course for you?
I mean, I to be honest, didn't even watch the last one. I don't know what the intent is. I'm sure there's some method to the madness that is the KOPW Championship for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Is it selling any subscriptions? Is it selling any tickets? Well, I don't know. Is it a chance for at least somebody like a Yuya Uemura to demonstrate something different about his professional
his
wrestling
lemon
game?
eating? Yeah, that was the difference maker for Ricky Choshu.
I will be awaiting the review from Karen and Bruce. Yes.
And final thing is the SmackDown number from Friday night, 2,333,000 viewers and a 0.63 in the demo. So they were down 7% in viewers, down 17% in the demo. Lowest since March 29th, and they were going up against back-to-back games from the NBA play-in tournament with the Bulls against the Heat, and then Sacramento and New Orleans. So that was their competition. They did beat everything except for the NBA. And in Canada, SmackDown doing 226,800 viewers, which was down 19% from the prior week, although beating everything except for coverage of the Toronto Blue Jays and San Diego Padres. Blue Jays still commanding the sports charts on a
How are they doing basis. This year?
The Jays or ratings?
The Jays.
Oh, I don't know. The Leafs won tonight. I know that. Series is tied 1-1.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Oh, the Jays are like 4th place right now, I think.
Well, it's early.
Yeah,
How many games have they played? 7?
They've won 12 games.
Oh,
I guess. Oh, whatever. This is not the place for me
Okay.
to talk about sports. They're 4th out of 5th in the AL East. They are 13-10.
That's respectable.
Yeah, I guess the leaders right now are 14-7, the Baltimore Orioles. So yeah, I guess it's still early.
Okay, there you go. That was your baseball minute presented by Wai Ting. And now we go on to Raw tonight from Columbus, Ohio, and WrestleTix. Last update, 8,927 tickets out. Probably was not a sellout tonight. Michael Cole and Pat McAfee are inside of the ring to tee up tonight's show, and we have the graphic, a developing story that we will have a battle royal tonight for the women's championship. This is a developing story, which I mean,
technically, isn't every wrestling match that's about to happen a developing story? Is it?
I mean, we
life
kind of
itself?
knew this match was happening all weekend, so I don't know how developing it was, but nonetheless.
Life itself is a developing story.
Jey Uso comes out at the beginning and he says with he has a lot to prove to the world, and he's going to do so at Backlash, and he has to beat Damian Priest. So Priest comes out and says that, one time, Jay, you whooped my ass so badly that I came back to you in the locker room and I told you that you earned my respect. And you and I went drinking that night, and Jay noted, I took an Uber.
Yeah, he did, yes. Which got some laughs.
Hilarious. And Jay told him that night, we next. And Priest said, I was proud to stand with you, and you were half right. I was next. And this title shows why I am now, and you are just the first of many, that the machine is going to feed me. Jay says, if that's all you see me as, a tag guy, another Uso, well, Damian, the only reason you're the leader of Judgment Day is because Rhea Ripley got hurt, and now you're Dom Mysterio's bitch. And Priest, you're going to be fed to me because I'm going to be the next champion. And then JD McDonagh runs in and literally bumps into Jay, and JD ducks a super kick, so Jay misses JD and super kicks Priest, and JD is all apoplectic, apologizing to Priest for his latest screw-up, and Damian Priest is pissed at this dork that he's associated with.
So I felt it was notable that it seemed like it was Damian Priest that was trying to warn Jay about JD coming. Like this was a hit that Priest never called for, and because Priest seemed to have established some sort of like noble respect amongst him and Jay, he didn't want Jay to get attacked by JD.
Well, he explained later in the back, I did. That was not called for. That was not the plan, and it seems more to the side of Damian Priest does not need these guys. That he can do all this on himself, which begs the question why he's still with these guys.
Maybe he'll reconsider soon enough. Yeah, I thought both these guys had it really good tonight. The story that Damian Priest conveyed to us about the two of them going out for drinks last year sounded very believable. I wouldn't doubt that there are at least elements of reality in it. And I think just even mentioning, that these two opponents prior had a night out together, like it establishes a bit of a depth of history between the two off screen, and it makes this match suddenly feel like it's been built a lot longer than we've
Did this
actually
kill the
seen.
industry? A heel and a babyface going out for drinks last year?
I don't know, not at all.
Maybe he was still in his bloodline days.
No, because he would have been. When did he leave the bloodline?
He left like last, the match at SummerSlam with Roman. So it was post Mania, pre SummerSlam.
Okay,
so there was
whatever.
a window there.
Yeah. Anyway, I think they're doing a good job here of, making Priest basically kind of feel like he's the baby face, but a leader of a heel group, and feeling conflicted about that. And overall, like I thought both of these two did really well. This is essentially two mid-carders post WrestleMania trying to elevate themselves to feel like they're worthy of a title program to co-headline at least the pay-per-view. And I thought this segment did a good job of justifying that.
Well, what was interesting on this show is like the promotion for Backlash was essentially contained to this segment. They're promoting the draft and they are promoting King of the Ring. They are already getting ahead of themselves, and we're doing more to focus on King of the Ring. And it feels like this Backlash show, like we're just kind of going off the fumes of WrestleMania, and it's like we've got our two title matches. Obviously, the Rhea thing was a curveball that they had to address tonight. You can see like they're building up Sami Zayn and Bronson Reed. They've got that seems to be the first match for Zayn, and Gable's more long-term, but it does kind of feel like Backlash is sort of just in this inopportune time where you have the draft, and I don't think people are super like jazzed to like get up for another big show after you're just coming off this Mania and you've got all this other stuff going on.
I almost feel like historically, like Backlash is the place where you just repeat your Mania programs, you know, because for whatever reason, because there's obviously still money to be made in many cases. But like now it's not really that at all. Like what rematches are we getting from Mania at Backlash?
Well, as of now, none.
Exactly. So like
we only have 2 matches, I think. So.
They in many, like it almost feels like they kind of have to rush. Yeah, but you know the Rhea thing they you know couldn't have planned for. But we'll see like what the draft, you know, what sort of pieces the draft leaves. I mean, I guess Backlash won't be affected by the draft too much.
Yeah, and I mean the other element is like going into the draft, like they are teasing like all the key groups like having like people like from Judgment Day, Alpha Academy, and Imperium. Like you're getting the sense like they're breaking up a bunch of acts here, or at least like certain members. They're teasing it. Awesome Truth defend the tag titles against DIY, and we had Miz deliver a DDT to Gargano on the edge, and then a springboard lands right into a knee by Ciampa. Truth gets the tag, and then Ciampa hits a pedigree onto R-Truth for a 2 count, hits him with a knee strike with the pad down, and then hit meeting in the middle, but Miz yanks Gargano from the floor, and Miz sends Ciampa over the rail, and Gargano tries a roll-up, there's a kick-out, and Truth and Miz hit the Truth-crushing finale, the TCF, at 10 minutes and 7 seconds to retain the tag titles. Afterward, they go to shake hands, but Ciampa would not participate in this admission of defeat, and he left.
Yeah, so them too.
They're teasing a lot of splits being teased.
I thought it was a good, exciting match. You know, DIY are excellent in ring, and because R-Truth is so over, these crowds are really invested in seeing him stay as a champion. So it meant that they were invested in the near falls of this match. I think also because of their status, they can actually believably lose any one of these matches to teams, especially like as good as DIY. So I thought it was a successful match for those reasons.
Priest is scolding JD in the back, as we had mentioned, and then Dom enters, and he's got Santos Escobar with him because he's had to get Santos to replace him tonight because Dom is in a sling, and he's cleared all of this with Adam Pearce, but he did not inform JD of this change, nor Damian Priest, so his communication issues continue to suffer, and Priest tells them to go handle your business, but stay out of mine. And there was no Finn Balor on the show either.
No, but he did announce that he re-signed a contract.
Yes. Yeah, he said he's not going anywhere. Imperium come out, and Gunther says he is not here to take shots at Sami Zayn. He's had some time to digest what happened, and he realizes, I elevated the IC title to heights it has never been at before. I will go down as the greatest champion in its history. I walked around with a target on my back for nearly 2 years. Now it's off my shoulders, and for that, I thank you, Sami. Because now I am the hunter, and I can do whatever I want. And it doesn't matter what brand I go to. I am going after another title, and first I'm declaring myself for the King of the Ring tournament, and he will decide what he does next, and he's putting all the champions on notice.
So does this imply like the winner of the King of the Ring gets a title shot against
They didn't outright state that, but I
hope so. Like,
I hope they have some stipulation, because in the past they've been doing these King of the Ring tournaments, and the winner gets an awful gimmick for 3 months.
Yeah,
I do not want to see this guy with a cape and a scepter having to walk down to the ring.
Kind of already has the cape down, you know, with the long trench coat. The scepter, I think. King G, yeah. I hope there are some stakes attached to this King of the Ring. Why would anybody care to win it, you know?
New Day come out, and they remind us, as if we could forget, that Xavier Woods is the defending King of the Ring, and you are trying to usurp my throne. And he's going to cement his legacy by becoming a 2-time King of the Ring winner. So that is the story for Xavier Woods. And Gunther laughs this off and says, you know, you won. It was like some mistake. I would say the whole tournament was a mistake when they did it. And then the New Day mock him for losing the IC title. And Kaiser and Vinci are told to take care of the New Day. So that gives us an impromptu match here. This whole segment was just blocked for, they had 20 minutes here.
I thought it was really funny how, like, at the suggestion from Gunther that Kaiser and Vinci take care of the New Day, Woods was like complaining, no, we faced them so many times already, which is exactly all of our thoughts, having seen some iteration of this match like 50 times.
Well, it might be the last time we're ever going to see this tag match.
Possibly, yes.
So Michael Cole. So for the purposes of this promotion of the King of the Ring, they are acknowledging all of the history of the King of the Ring, and not just beginning in 93 when it became a pay-per-view, noting that Brett was a 2-time winner and stating that it goes back to 1985. So that is a change from their regular history of the King of the Ring. Woods gets a hot tag. He's in with Vinci, gets hit by, or Kingston then comes in and gets hit by this big inside-out lariat. And then Woods shoves Kaiser off the turnbuckle, stopping the Imperial Bomb, and that allows New Day to hit their finish onto Vinci and get the pin in 9 minutes and 14 seconds. Gunther's at ringside, and he's pissed. He takes the poor office chair, lifts it, and just destroys this thing. And he just looks at Kaiser like, what a bunch of screw-ups. And he leaves on his own without Imperium. Kaiser comes over. He's consoling Vinci, gets him up, helps him out of the ring, and then boom, bashes him into the LED board, hits him with a PK, and then drills him on the desk into the steps. The officials are out, and Kaiser is brought back up the ramp, but then he gets free and sprints down the ramp around this ring. This guy was going at an alarming rate of speed and just drills him against the steps, and the whole crowd was just like impressed by this athletic sprint from Ludwig Kaiser. And he walks to the back, meeting Gunther, and tells Gunther, "I told you I would get it done," as Gunther smiles. I'm hoping these two are split, because I would like to see like an honest push of Ludwig Kaiser and not just being like the lackey to Gunther. And I hope that this program is designed for that for Kaiser. As for Vinci, I don't know. I don't know how the split's going to, maybe he's going to surprise us, but I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be good for him.
Yeah.
But Kaiser feels like he's got all this like potential and like the ability to do promos. Like his character has really, his charisma has elevated too. And that's kind of been in the shadow of Gunther, who has just, taken his personality to an 11 over this last year.
I mean, I hope that there's a way to keep these two together while giving giving Kaiser, hit that singles run where he can actually feel like somebody, because I love these two together. I don't really think that at this point they'll have a storyline reason to break them up. So I would hate to see that association end, but I also do think that, like at this point, it's time to push Kaiser as, a significant player, because he's really passed every single test. Now, so by the way, that like stair spot is the same thing that he did to Kofi.
Yes.
So this is like sort of a signature spot that he's developed.
And might write Vinci off for, like, they might not go to this match right away. Like this was kind of designed to be like an angle to write out Vinci for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
They had a video on Andrade and his issues with Legado, and the fact that Judgment Day didn't want to do business with him, and they didn't want a business partner. I don't do what anyone tells him to do. And then they did dedicate some time to promoting all the 4 sold-out international shows, including the highest grossing event in the history of Belfast. The show they did in London at the O2, they did over 16,000 people at the O2 Arena. I mean, phenomenal business for these international shows that they just did. Out comes Drew McIntyre, and he's immediately getting CM Punk chants as he sits in the middle of the ring, but not before telling the camera operator, "Don't shoot up my kilt, you pervert," and says, in the spirit of Hulk Hogan after No Way Out 2002, thinking, "I've got the cure for the what chant." Boy, did Drew McIntyre decide, you know what? I'm going to kill this what chant once and for all. And dude, it was like the lightest what chants. Like I couldn't even hear them. And you just hear him state that, say what if you French kiss your cousins? And many of the fans here in Columbus had no problem continuing the what chants after this.
I actually thought this was a pretty successful shutdown of the chant.
He got enough that he continued here. He said, none of you fans know about complex relationships. Most of your relationships are with your right hand. To which Pat McAfee eloquently notes he suspects there's some southpaws in the audience. So he goes over his cash in at WrestleMania, and he too is declaring himself for the King of the Ring. He basically said, I'm not flying to France. I'm going to do one international flight in the next month, and it's to Saudi Arabia. Sheamus comes out and says, what's going on? It seems like you are not taking responsibility for your mistakes, and maybe you're the coward, Drew. He says, I've known you for 20 years, and for the last 4 years, you've complained about being robbed of your moment at WrestleMania. Then you finally got what you wanted this year. Your brother was there, your wife was there, and then you blew it over some stupid social media spat over a meme and a t-shirt. I'm here to tell you the truth, Drew, and the truth is a one-armed CM Punk kicked your arse. Drew says, Sheamus, you know how that man affected me when I was younger. And Sheamus, since you've returned, it hasn't been banger after banger after banger. Instead, Sheamus, it looks like it's been burger after burger after burger. And dude, Sheamus, like full on, like Jimmy Fallon, like broke during this scene. Like he seemed like he just broke here during this scene. And Sheamus comes back and says, yeah, but I can lose the weight. You, Drew, can't lose stupid.
You can get smarter, I suppose.
You can, but you never, I guess, truly lose stupid.
I guess not, no.
So this was leaning into, I guess a lot of people had dismissive comments about Sheamus, the Celtic warrior workout YouTuber himself.
Sheamus's response was that he was called to come back.
This was a very last minute deal to come back last week. This guy who's probably among the like highest percentage of people in shape in this company, but nonetheless, Drew said he was standing up for Sheamus in the back when all the guys in the locker room were mocking you last week, and I tell you the truth, and I'm your only friend, Sheamus, and now I only fight when it's worthwhile, and fighting you is not worthwhile, so I'm going to watch your back. And the announcers are confused. They're trying to dissect what he meant by that line at the end. And Drew takes a seat ringside as Sheamus gets ready to take on Shinsuke Nakamura. But what did you think about the promo here? Like, very loose feel that these two had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was a very good promo segment between the two. You know, again, very much playing off of the established connection that these two already have as the Banger Brothers, if we remember that lovely tag team name. And I thought it gave us a pretty unique dynamic to what we usually see between two professional wrestlers talking in the ring together. These two are at once like brothers almost, but at the same time on opposing sides of the heel babyface spectrum. So it was an attempt at doing a segment that felt contentious while also being somewhat friendly, ending with like almost like a purposely confusing little bit of intimidation here from Drew disguised as friendliness. So a lot that they had to convey here, but I thought they both did really well at building to whatever new story they're trying to tell. And I'm happy to see Sheamus like 2 weeks in already finding like a pretty strong role integrating him with Drew like this.
So the match with Nakamura, you see Drew is yelling at Pat McAfee, and then Sheamus on the edge of the apron, way he connects with the kneecap.
There's something to it, and I await somebody to give me an explanation about why.
Nakamura hits a knee strike off the barricade. They go through the commercial break as he's attacking the neck, which is the injury Sheamus is coming back from. But Sheamus gets back into control, white noise off the turnbuckle, and then the Kinshasa is stopped with a power slam. And as Sheamus powers up, Nakamura sidesteps the brogue kick and then ducks a kick, lands a strike of his own, and as Nakamura gets ready to launch at Sheamus, he's cut off with the brogue kick, and Sheamus wins in 11 minutes, 22 seconds.
And Drew didn't really get involved.
No, he just stood around. He was like Wardlow at the pay-per-view. Yeah, he did watch his back. Kathy Kelly speaks with Sami Zayn. He's been angry and he's hurt over what Gable did last week, and I'm going to be listening to Gable's explanation tonight because I don't see how he can possibly defend what he did last week. I mean, the man has a remarkable tolerance level. The fact that he's willing to listen because of the chance that maybe what he did was justified. Suplexing me in front of my wife, who was like screaming at the top of her lungs. Maybe there's a valid reason that I deserve that. So tune in later. But then Bronson Reed appears stating, "You have bigger problems to focus on." And Zayn just says, "Anytime, any place." And as Kathy Kelly goes to ask a follow-up question, then Reed jumps Zayn and just beats him down. And I would think that this is the Backlash match, and Gable is going to be more off into the distance.
Sure, yeah. Zayn is somebody I would expect to be both at Backlash and also the Saudi show. So
yes.
I imagine they'd have to quickly set up opponents for both of them, and probably Reed here and then Gable there.
Gable comes out with Alpha Academy, and first they showed the clip of Charles Barkley reacting to this turn on the Pat McAfee show last week. So they are met with boos, and Gable says what he did was justified. "Winning wasn't good enough last week for Sami. He had to come over while I was sobbing and place the IC title right in front of me. And still, I gave Sami his moment. But then Sami had to go another step further, going to find his wife to celebrate right as I was standing there. That should have been me at WrestleMania, celebrating with my daughter in the front row. But instead, I wasted my time training Sami Zayn. And I've been training a bunch of losers." And he goes to Tozawa. "Do you have a problem with that? All you do is lose and lose." Then he walks to Maxine. "Maxine, pretty as a princess, but as dumb as a box of rocks." And then Otis, he says, "You are the biggest disappointment of them all." And said, "I'm here to give you honest feedback. Now we're going to focus on me, and you three are going to help me no matter what." And all three are confused, they're reluctant, but finally Otis repeats him, "No matter what." So you have the reluctant Alpha Academy with their now heel leader, which I think everyone is looking at as his departure from these three to come, and maybe some changes.
Yeah, I think, following the Sami Zayn program, or the heel turn, I should say, we probably all expected his leadership of Alpha Academy to end. I thought it would be as soon as tonight, where he might break off from the group and join with the Creeds, but they're telling a longer breakup story here, and I think it's to the benefit of Otis, Maxine, and Akira Tozawa to play in this sort of like hostage, situation, to stay into the spotlight and to be able to kind of benefit from this story just a little bit longer, rather than just being discarded and forgotten about. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they build sympathy for the other remaining members of Alpha Academy before introducing the Creeds to join them.
Ricochet and Dominik are in the back, and Dominik said, "It's too bad I'm injured because I really wanted to face you." And Ricochet was looking forward to beating Dominik. And we get a promotion for JD and Ricochet on Speed this Wednesday, which I think is the first time they've actively promoted something within the body of the show, like setting up a match. Dominik turns around and he stares into Liv Morgan, and they just cut away. We don't know what went on here, but obviously teasing something involving these two for the future.
Yeah, with Liv obviously being the person to take Rhea out.
Yes. Is this this is like Dylan and Kelly when Brenda goes to France?
France involved here as well.
It could be Dominik and Liv going to France together.
Oh, very interesting. So is this the breakup of is this the Rhea Ripley babyface turn by having Dom and Liv together behind her back?
Well, it depends. If these two are seen by the shower at the Beverly Hills Beach Club, they might be caught in the act.
Ooh, interesting.
Nia Jax did a promo explaining there are 13 women and one monster in the Battle Royal, and you wouldn't believe this. She thinks she's going to be the winner. So, very confident. Ricochet and Andrade against JD McDonagh and Santos Escobar. Dominik tripped Ricochet from the floor, and this allows JD to knee Ricochet to the floor, sets up the commercial. They're double-teaming Ricochet when JD nails Andrade on the apron, and Andrade comes in. Ricochet and Santos collide with a mid-ring cross-body attempt by each other, and then Andrade sends JD off the top, snapping his neck on the top rope, so he's laying on the ground as Santos hits a Rana, sending Ricochet to rotate and land with like a leg drop on top of JD, but thus affecting his partner. So Andrade hits a spinning elbow to Santos and then hits his finisher, which has now been upgraded. No longer is this the message. It is now the Shadow. He hit him with the Shadow, Michael Cole stated.
The Shadow at least makes a bit more sense. It's La Sombra translated.
It is. It's still a weird name for a finisher, but hey.
But better than the message. I had no idea what that was supposed to refer to. And clearly they didn't either, because they wouldn't have changed it otherwise.
Would you ever imagine screaming, "The Shadow! The Shadow.
Well, would you scream, I don't know, any stupid, like, sweet chin music? Like, that doesn't sound any better.
Only if I had the replica title belt.
The AA?
The AA. Yeah, that works too. So he pins JD 11 minutes and 56 seconds. Fine match. And we're getting a 6-man next week with the addition. Well, it's different partners next week. It's Ricochet, Andrade, and Jey Uso against Damian Priest, Finn Balor, and I think JD.
Probably right in that assumption. Yeah.
Priest shows up attacking everyone and hits a razor's edge to Ricochet and the South of Heaven on Andrade, and then yells at Dominik and JD, stating, "I don't need anybody. You need me."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe he has an ironclad contract with the Judgment Day and he can't escape these two.
There are ways to escape. You know, maybe just do something to get fired.
Well, Balor has his own ironclad contract, it sounds like. So.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like it. Yeah.
Zoe Stark had a video and went over her past year of sending Trish Stratus packing, pinning Becky Lynch. I nearly won Money in the Bank. I nearly beat Rhea Ripley at Survivor Series. I nearly got on the card at WrestleMania. No, she didn't include that last one. But yeah, that was her year. And she says, I'm just getting started.
Well, good for them to, give her some airtime here, reminding us who she is.
Jackie Redmond interviews Candice and Indy Hartwell. It's basically like, you guys are kind of shitty now. Yeah, but we win. And then there was an altercation involving Ivy Nile who was involved here? Liv Morgan and Nia Jax that security had to get involved with. And then Becky Lynch casually walks by, steals the microphone from Jackie, and just starts playing host here. She walks up to Maxine.
So this is all one shot. Like
this was
episode's
our
a long shot thing.
Yeah, this was our seeking our Emmy moment of the night, which I feel every WWE broadcast now has to have one of these. Mm-hmm. So she goes up to Maxine and says, "Prove tonight why this isn't going to be the last time you fight for a title." And then she says that she's going to be ready when Rhea returns, and I'm looking for a fight as we walk through Gorilla, and out comes Becky Lynch. And dude, it's like, we've got like a half hour to go. I'm like, we're going to get a half hour of this battle royal. Are you serious? There were a lot of entrances that ate up some time.
When you think about like the commercial breaks, like when you think about the length of a Rumble, like it kind of makes sense, right?
I mean, it was still a 22-minute battle royal, so it was lengthy.
But like for the sort of walk and talk, I thought Becky did a really good job at it. She comes out here, she's very commanding. They did a little bit of setup for Maxine here as well in the build up to the match. You also had a moment where you saw Regal, Road Dogg, and Triple H at Gorilla, and the camera seemed to like almost purposely like shoot away from them initially before like deciding to go towards them when Becky seemed to call more attention to them by saying something about like getting a cameraman because we're going to need to take updated photographs. So that part was kind of interesting.
The participants, we have 14 women in the Battle Royal. Becky Lynch, Liv Morgan, Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, Natalya, Maxine, Candice, Indy Hartwell, Piper Niven, Chelsea Green, Ivy Nile, Caden Carter, Katana Chance, and Nia Jax. And they mention past winners of Battle Royals for vacant titles with Gail Kim, Kurt Angle, and the Great Khali.
All right. Thank you.
The last time this happened, it was the Great Khali winning the world title.
They have a research team now for all of this. They have a whole team of Chris Samsas.
That's it. So they did put quite a lot of attention on Maxine, where she ends up coming from behind and knocking Candice LeRae out, and then she tosses Indy out. So, they definitely had some. It wasn't just like focusing on the winner of this. They tried to get across some other stories in this, Maxine being one of the more focused ones. And then it was like a lot of eliminations. Baszler tossed out Chance, who was caught by Carter, and then both got knocked off by Stark with a super kick from the apron. Jax then swung Nile, so she's out. Maxine lands a series of kicks and enziguris on Nia Jax, and the crowd's getting into it like this offense on Nia Jax, which usually is the telegraph. Someone shines and boom, they're gone. And when she was eliminated, there were a lot of boos here for Maxine, but they put like a good amount of attention on her for the short time she was in this.
They've done a really great job of, I think, taking whatever was sort of out there about her getting yelled at by some heckler at an indie show, and turning that into like babyface sympathy story, to the point where like I think she's like one of the more memorable wrestlers certainly in this entire division, and they managed to tell some pretty good story with her here.
Then we have Becky gets Niven onto the apron and knocks her out, but then Niven yanks Becky and throws her into the steps, hits a cannonball, and Becky is placed on the desk when Nia comes and lifts up Niven, chokeslams her onto the desk, and then drives her with a Samoan drop on top of Becky. These tables are just indestructible. Meanwhile, in all of this, the referees are checking on the women by the desk when Chelsea's eliminated by Natalya, but all the referees miss it, so she gets a do-over to come back and just got eliminated a few seconds later. And then Baszler eliminated Natalya. Jax then catches Zoe Stark, places her on the apron, just nails her with a forearm, and Zoe gets to add to her video. She almost won the Battle Royal. A lot of almosts. Mm-hmm. So we're down to the final four. Stark tries to save Baszler, but she too is knocked out by Jax. And it's down to Jax, Liv Morgan, and Becky Lynch, who is back from the destruction by the desks. And Becky and Liv work together. A double annihilator gets stopped. I would have loved to have seen her try this annihilator onto two people at once who are just next to one another. I mean, what are you even landing on? Like, that just seems like that'd be really uncomfortable.
Well, you saw Swerve do a Swerve stomp on a whole, like, 10 members of the security, and somehow that worked, you know.
So there's a code breaker by Liv, and then Becky comes off the turnbuckle with a leg drop, and this, like, sends Nia flying, and she is out. So we're down to Becky and Liv Morgan. They fight on the edge of the apron, where there's a code breaker by Liv, and then she tries Oblivion to the floor. And then she is blocked, and a manhandle slam is hit by Becky, and this is enough to eliminate Liv in 21 minutes and 46 seconds as Becky wins her 7th women's title, they note. And then she celebrates by going into the crowd for an inordinate amount of time. Like, they went past the hour, and I think they were expecting like this to be like Sami Zayn in Montreal winning the title. Like, the crowd was like, it was cool. Like, Becky was here, but it was like, cool. And it was like these people were just kind of like standing around, and Becky was just posing with different fans and stuff. And it was just a long celebration afterwards. But there you go. That was the end of Raw and the new women's champion.
There was a feeling with this particular win where I think certainly I felt like we were just going back to the status quo and not really building anything new when there are so many other possibilities, or at least one other possibility, and Liv Morgan that I think people might have wanted to see a little bit more. But the whole thing of this entire Battle Royal, you know, obviously was created on, a week, 2 weeks notice. And I could excuse going back to the status quo at a moment like this, you know, when you haven't really built up too many other contenders in the division. The match itself, I thought, was not that pretty. There were moments where it seemed like almost everybody was a little bit lost. But I thought Nia continued to play like a really effective role here in just being, again, a memorable figure for everybody to kind of play off of. And the crowd did make the closing moments feel like a pretty big deal. Liv, like I am not also too upset about, because I feel like they're wanting to.
I think she's getting this title, and if she's getting the title, I would not be doing it in this fashion. I mean, her beating a Becky, they could have put it on Nia, and Liv could have, you know, either one. Yeah. That's kind of where I thought this would be, but I think it's very important to get the title to Liv when Rhea is ready to come back. I think
with enough story, you know.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's probably where they're going, and yeah. So this episode of Raw, like it certainly feels like this draft, it is going to somewhat replenish this. Like, just, you know, you get this show, and it's like Cody is off this show now, and you're just seeing like a show that is built around, like at this moment, like Damian Priest and Jey Uso and Becky Lynch. They're down Rhea Ripley. They're down Seth Rollins. Cody is off the SmackDown. But all of this is going to change in the next few weeks. So we will see what the rosters are made up from. I would say, like, the takeaway is I think Backlash is going to be a hot crowd. It'll probably be a really entertaining show, because I think that they're on a pretty strong hot streak of putting together these shows. But I can't say, like, tonight's TV felt like Backlash is our number one or even our number two priority. It feels as though it's a show we are obligated to do. It's going to make us a lot of money going to France, no doubt, and I'm sure people will enjoy the show. But it did not feel as though this is coming up in 2 weeks and it's a big show around the corner.
Yeah. I mean, if last week already kind of like gave us the feeling of WrestleMania Come Down episode, we were firmly into WrestleMania Come Down season by this point. But I think there's excitement around a draft. So next week I think should be a bit of a difference maker. And then Backlash. Well, really, post Backlash is sometimes like the real start of your.
What about the post Backlash lull? The come down from Backlash.
But as far as like the new brands, have they said when that starts? Typically, that would be after Backlash, right?
Typically, it's the following week. So I'm imagining that Monday after Backlash is when it's like your quote unquote like reset shows.
So maybe not too much of this sort of feeling yet. Yeah. Thank you, Cena, for reminding me. They did also do another QR code here, and this one led to a coming soon video. A note that seemed to read, "Remember who you are," more Nightbird symbols, and more hint at the significance of the number 5.
Is it safe to say now that we're a few of these in, that this QR code, this second campaign, has not really grabbed people to the same degree?
Well, I haven't seen as much buzz surrounding it, and
I've seen none.
Yeah, for me personally, I just I guess because we've been through it once already, because I know kind of what's at the end of this is a Bo Dallas run, which I'm not that excited by, and also because I do this show and I know if I get into any sort of like deep dive into this, it means I'm going to be suffering trying to catch up for the rest of the episode. I just haven't really been as engaged myself.
Okay, well, that was Raw. Any other thoughts on the show?
No, not really.
Well, if you have any super chats and want to get them in, you can. We have some pieces of feedback to get to. And where should we go next week?
Let's go to a super chat here from Indy, who sends 100 rupees. Thank you, Indy. Dave recently said Cody was a leading contender for the Hall of Fame. With his role in starting AEW and becoming a big star in WWE, has he crossed the line for you?
Cody will be a super strong candidate this year for a lot of reasons. Yeah, I think he'll be among the strongest on that.
What are the arguments against Cody not going in?
I don't really have any strong ones. I mean, you're going to argue, he's been the top I would say like he has been the top star of WWE for like a solid year now. For some, you're going to have some that are going to look at it as the longevity factor. But to me, it's, I think he's going to get a lot of support this year. And by the time Hall of Fame season comes around, we're going to have a bunch of months of him like look at business right now. And it's been this upward trajectory that you can trace back to 2 years ago when he came back to the company. So I think he's like that, coupled with AEW for many, like just the impact of what he did with AEW was going to be enough. Like that is something that is going to have an impact on this industry as long as AEW is around. So you couple that now where he is like, you can even look at the lead up to WrestleMania. Like if you're just looking at the quarters, I'd be interested to like literally go through like the segments and who was the bigger draw segment wise, him or The Rock, because man, Cody's segments on those weeks when The Rock was not there, like he was holding that audience, and those were the big shifts. He more than held his own. Like we were not talking about Cody being overshadowed in any sense. Like if anything, like you could argue he was like the number one going into Mania. Like everything culminated with him, and you're going to have this whole post-Mania business boom that I feel is going to continue for some time, and he's going to be the focal point of the company.
Thank you, Andy, for that. Let's go up next to forum.postwrestling.com.
We start off with Jeremy in Texas. I suppose Becky is the safe choice as champion. It makes you wonder what the plan was for Rhea and if she was due for an extremely long reign. What titles do you see switching brands with the draft coming up? An IC and US switch makes sense. Do they really load up Raw for Netflix with SmackDown being a lame duck show on Fox? They're not going to make Fox like a lame duck show just because it's like they have the roster that they're not going to need to. Switching the IC and US champions, so that would put Zayn on SmackDown and Logan Paul on Raw. You could do that, sure. Again, I don't even look at some of these swaps as like this is going to be hard and fast, and I don't even think they should be hard and fast if they need things. But yeah, I mean, you could do the requisite title changes. They make no difference to me. It's like, what are the programs you have in mind for Zayn? Like you have this I would say at least a short-term program with Bronson Reed, and then the bigger thing with Chad Gable. So it would make no sense to split up him and Gable until you get to the match.
Yeah. So I see like the current men's and women's champions staying on the same brand. It just seems like, to me, that's all based off of the belt designs being similar, and I can't see them doing the awkward belt swap again. Yeah, they could. Anything can happen, but it's really hard to predict at this point, like who might change, nor really like what it even means ultimately. Let's go to Muggan, who says the promos tonight felt looser and pointed, especially during the Drew Sheamus segment. Your mileage may vary on Drew going low with the body shaming. Sheamus rolled with those punches very well. Judgment Day continued their strife without Rhea putting out the fires. Finn Balor renewing his deal could spell a world title run in his future, provided that he stays put on Raw. The tag title match was solid and the Battle Royal was better than expected. It's okay to play it safe with Becky becoming the new women's champion. If Ilya ends up joining Imperium with Vinci's ousting, I will seethe. Liv's revenge tour doesn't end at one stop. There's many, many stops to go. Can you see that happening?
I mean, sure, it's the easy transition for Ilya, but I'm really hoping like Kaiser is not just in the same role and we're just replacing the third guy. It just feels like there's more that could be done on that front. But yeah, it's an option to go to. Personally, I would like to see like Ilya in a role to like face Gunther at some point.
Yeah, I don't think he needs it. I think he's already strong enough being promoted on his own. And by making him the third guy in Imperium, and he's already at a size disadvantage even compared to like a Giovanni Vinci, I can't see that being the best way to promote him. So I wouldn't be into it, but let's see. And that is it for feedback. Last thing here is Martin Bushby sends in £5. Thank you very much, Martin, for your support. As always, from Eagles Don't Hunt Flies.
Also, Tuesday night, it is the first week of NXT's spring break-in. So we have Ilya Dragunov against Trick Williams, where if Trick Williams loses, he will leave NXT. That is the stipulation. The Family against the No Quarter Catch Crew in a 6-man tag. They are fighting over payment for the disappearance of a member. Blair Davenport against Sol Ruca in a beach brawl match. Roxanne Perez, Lyra Valkyria, and Tatum Paxley in a 3-way for the women's title. And a contract signing for Natalya and Lola Vice's NXT Underground match. Shouldn't that one be saved for the Apex instead of next week?
Oh, they could do another one,
I guess. There. And then Dynamite, all we have announced so far is Jon Moxley and Powerhouse Hobbs for the IWGP title on Wednesday night, which is the next time Way and I will be coming at you on Wednesday night. But before then, we have got the wellness policy on Tuesday. Way, what is your personality?
Very good question. I guess we're about to find out because, tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern time at youtube.com/postwrestling. I'll be live with Jordan Goodman, Neil Flanagan, as we talk about personality types, and specifically the Myers-Briggs type indicator, MBTI. Are you familiar, John?
Is that Tamatonga's other alter ego?
The MFT. No, they might be related. We'll find out. So we'll be taking a personality test basically, and we'll be just kind of discussing them, as a way to talk about the topic of personalities and how we relate to each other based off of our own identification through our personality types. So it should be a fun one. It should be one that I think we'll hopefully learn something from. So that's tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, the wellness policy, youtube.com/postwrestling. Last thing here, Martin Bushby did also send another super chat just to say, great job on the charity climb, lads. Thank you, Martin, for that, as well as your support, and for all of you guys who decided to donate and support us on our CN climb, which took place on Sunday here. We have raised a total of $3,086 for the World Wildlife Fund.
How'd you feel today? Good?
Yeah, good. Ready to go back up there.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thank you to everyone that donated, helped us out. It went for a good cause on Sunday. So thank you to all of you out there. And that's going to wrap it up, everyone. Postwrestling.com, bookmark it, like this video, subscribe it, send it to other people, and just put in the subject line, listen to these two guys. What the fuck? Good night.